And then when you've decided on the firm that you want to go to, then just move. Because there's never going to be a perfect situation. There's always going to be things going on.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. Brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners, it's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. Learn more and subscribe today at eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast. And now, here's your host, Frank LaRosa.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I am your host, Frank LaRosa, and again, as always, joined by my lovely co-host, Vanna White. No, just kidding. Stacey Frank. Stacey with an E. Kelly?
Regis and Kelly.
Regis and Kelly, got it.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. Happy to be back.
Thanks for listening and watching. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget we have a pretty cool YouTube channel, and you get to see sort of behind the scenes what the studio looks like, or at least part of what it looks like. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for the great comments. And most importantly, those of you that are looking for help, thanks for calling us. And we really appreciate it. So today we're going to just jump right into sort of inside baseball on the transition, right? What really happens when an advisor moves? And we were talking about this before the call. I'm really going to cover three areas, right? One of it sort of is timelining and planning. What does that look like, and what should an advisor expect? Another one is client communication, sort of do's and don'ts, right? And that's a little bit different depending on what kind of firm you're coming from. And then the other one is really operational and emotional complexities, right? So, the operational side is like, how do we actually do it, and what is that going to look like? And then some of it is the emotional complexities, right? There's a lot of emotion involved when you make a move. I understand that because I've done it before myself. A lot of people in our space have never even been a financial advisor, let alone moved the book of business. So there's some complexities there, and I think that I want to just cover some of those things today, right? So let's start with the timing, right? So an advisor says to you, Stace, hey, we're probably not looking to make a move for at least a year, right? What's your response to that?
Good. That's perfect.
Right.
Because in order to go through a due diligence the correct way, the way we think it will be thorough and a valuable use of time, you still need at least 60 to 90 days to make the actual transition. So that's 3 months right there. So when someone says a year, that only really gives us six or 8 months or so to really go through a thorough due diligence of 3 to 4, a good subset of firms. That makes sense.
Yeah, and that's only 3 or 4, right?
That's only 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, if you really want to do proper due diligence, and you're looking at 4, 5, 6 firms, maybe even more than that, and I've had some clients that have looked at north of 20 some odd firms, right? 20 firms, custodians. They're exploring this idea of, should I go and open up my own RIA? What's that like? So, okay, let's talk to Schwab, let's talk to Fidelity. Then you talk to different technology companies. So it can take a lot of time. And then on the flip side, right, I had a client recently, like 2 days ago, say they want to leave as soon as possible. When I asked them the question about what is your timing, right? So all things being equal, when is your timing? And they're like, well, we want to have our decision made in less than 30 days. I'm like, okay, well, that's fast, right? And I'll go as fast as the client wants, but I'm like, that's fast. So when I say to you, hey, listen, we have, I can get a call set up for this, and this, your answer needs to be, okay, we'll make it. Not like, well, we're busy, I got a client appointment, I got something going on. Like, we can go as fast or slow as you want, but the reality is, and you already made this comment, like, once you make a decision, you should be giving yourself, and that most firms will say they want at least 60 to 90 days to prepare, meaning that once you've actually said, this is where I want to go, you need to give yourself at least 90 days, in my opinion, to prepare for the move. And that does not include if you're going independent and you're looking for office space and you're building out the office and all that. That's a separate conversation, right? I'm talking about even if you're just dropping into another office somewhere, or you're using temp space, or you're working from home, you need to give yourself 90 days to clean up your data, not take your data. Well, it depends if you're independent or not, right? But just to prepare, to start, we'll get into the communication component, right? But really to start showing your clients a little bit more love, right? Start getting your house in order is probably the best way to put it. Get your house in order. If you're for purposes of this immediate conversation, we'll just talk about protocol firms. So we won't really get into sort of the bank or the Morgan Stanley or UBS kind of stuff, right?
Right.
But if you're leaving a firm, you're going to have to do some work, and you're going to put together your protocol spreadsheet, which basically means you can take names, phone numbers, home addresses, business addresses, and types of accounts. So
number of accounts.
You can take, for a household might have 2 joint accounts, 3 individual accounts, 4 IRAs. I always get IRAs, trust accounts, right? So you can have the number of those accounts, so that information, the types of accounts and the number of those accounts in a given household can be given to the new firm so they can prepare documentation, right? But prior to you leaving, you can't give the new firm, nor will the new firm want any of the client information. They won't want names, they won't want phone numbers, nothing, right? So you're basically giving them the second half of the spreadsheet. And that takes a little bit of time to put together, which is why you need a little bit of time. So not only does it take you time to put together, but then you have to give that information to the firm, and then they're gonna do their side in terms of DocuSign and getting everything together with the types of the documents that have to go for each account, right? So if it's a joint account and there's 4 documents for every joint account, whatever, and you have 4 joint accounts, so they need to put all that stuff together, right? Back in the day, we used to have to do this manually, and you used to have to basically have stacks of new account forms and stacks of custodial agreements and beneficiary agreements for RIAs and all the IRAs, and then we'd have to basically stuff envelopes, right? It was very manually intensive.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that's why it's so much easier to do today, right? But you have to give yourself time to do that.
So I want to maybe derail and ask you sort of a question, just because of a situation I'm working on with a bank advisor that's trying to join a family member of his that's already independent. Okay. So we're going through this due diligence process. Probably been working together for about 2 to 3 months now, and he says I'm going to have my decision by July 1st. Call it okay, but I'm not going to move until January.
Yeah.
And so I certainly have my thoughts, but do all the due diligence and then push out the transition another 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Sort of a trick question for you.
So I've seen clients do that. I've had clients do that where they made a decision and they've not moved for 6 months for one reason or another, right? And there can be some logic to that. Mm-hmm. The downside to that is mentally, once you've made the decision to leave, it becomes harder to sort of operate in the world that you're in because you just don't want to be there anymore, right? You've got one foot out the door.
Well, you're kind of living a double life.
Yeah,
and the amount of subconscious
distraction
it
weighs you down,
on.
Right? You get and then I've seen situations where all of a sudden you get a huge referral from a client.
Right.
So now it's like, do you open that account or do you not open that account, right? And if you open that account and and you're gonna, by the time you open that account and now you're gonna move 90 days later, now what are you gonna do? Now, for me in particular, I actually had a situation where I did get a referral from a client and I opened that account up in October of 1998. Big Merrill Lynch account. We moved a whole bunch of paperwork, a whole bunch of accounts, and it was all individual SMA managers and all the other stuff back when there was no such thing as a unified managed account. And then in January, I had to tell him I was leaving, right? And now, back in the day, you could have more conversations with clients, right? And he was pissing and moaning about it, whatever. He still moved, but that's the downside, right? The other thing is something might happen. The market might turn. Not that we're going to get COVID again, but something might happen. something might happen in your situation where you might get a client complaint. And I'm not saying good or bad, but I've seen it all happen where an advisor is preparing to move, they get a client complaint that comes in, and then the firm that they're going to says, hold on, now we got to put everything on hold because we can't bring you in if you have an open client complaint.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And so there are a lot of things other than a large deferred comp payment coming in or something to that effect, right? My advice, because I've been doing this for 30 years, okay?
We've seen it all.
I've seen it all. I've seen it all with an asterisk because because there's going to be something that we haven't seen yet, right?
But like, what are the chances?
But I've seen. I had a guy that decided he was he was Dean Witter at the time, back when right before the Morganton and Dean Witter thing came together. I was at Smith Barney, and he says, I'm going to wait till. I think this was earlier in the year. I'm going to wait until September because I'm waiting for a back-end bonus hurdle to get paid, and it was, I'm just making up a number now because it was so long ago I forget, but it was something like $30,000 or $50,000. It was a big number. Oh, it was $90,000.
$90,000.
It was $90,000.
It's still real money.
Right. It's real money, right? And he was doing like $700,000 at the time. So back then, that's a lot of money, right? But in the interim, because he knew he was leaving, he stopped doing certain things within his business. He wasn't trading as much. Back then, there was more trading going on, right? He wasn't trading as much. The market actually started to go down a little bit. And the deal changed because his production went down. And so the $90,000 he was trying to save, it ended up being essentially a wash.
Right.
But he ended up having to wait like 7 or 8 months. But it ended up being a wash. And he would have been better off just making the move, right?
Right, because in an ever-changing industry, what are the chances that in 3 months, let alone 6 months, that all things are still exactly the same?
Yeah.
The markets, the deal structures, which it's only a 90-day, it's a 90-day expiration of them anyway.
Things can happen, Interest rates can continue to go down, and if interest rates go down, deals are going to change. As we approach the end of the year, some firms decide as they get into the end of the year, they're not going to be as aggressive on deals. Some firms may decide they're going to be more aggressive. You just don't know, right?
Too much unknown.
But what I've seen more than anything else is it becomes like a slow death at the firm that they're at because you've made the decision to leave. In my opinion, once you've made a decision to leave, that's number one. Go through that process as quickly as possible. And then when you've decided on the firm that you want to go to, then just move. Because there's never going to be a perfect situation. There's always going to be things going on. I've said to advisors, sometimes good advisors that are always bringing in assets, I'm like, well, is there ever going to be a time where you're not going to be bringing assets in?
Right.
And th're like, no. I'm like, okay, so when's that window of opportunity?
Right. I get asked that question all the time. Hey, Stacey, we're going to probably move in the next whatever, but what's the best time to move?
Yeah.
Well, it's Valentine's Day. It's my son's birthday.
Yeah,
it's summer vacation. The market's up.
It's
The
a full
market's
moon
down.
on Wednesday.
I say,
Yeah.
bad news. I promise you, there will never be an ideal time to make that
because
move.
life happens. You always have things going on in your life, in your business. You have clients that are going to be dying, and you have to deal with an estate issue. You get a new referral that's coming in, and then the other thing, and again, this is more. It was more prevalent, but maybe not. Like you get a one of your high net worth clients gives you a referral, and that referral wants to do alternatives. So now what are you going to do? You're going to put that new client. You're going to put $1 million or $2 or $3 or $4 million in alternative investments that are not portable.
Right.
Right? So that happens all the time.
All the time. And
so you're putting yourself in a position where you have to, quite honestly, you're being disingenuous to your clients and or potentially prospects.
Yeah.
I actually, it's a funny story. So when I had made the move from Prudential Securities to Smith Barney back in 1999, actually 98, but then I moved in January 1999, one of my clients actually got his retirement payout, right? And I hadn't said anything to him. I was close to him. Like his daughter babysat for us, and I was really close to him. He became a really good friend. And so he has this check for like $800,000. He comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to deposit this check. I'm going to come up and see you." And I'm like, hold on. Don't do that yet, because I was leaving in like 2 weeks.
Right. So what do you? I mean,
I
that's
didn't want.
real.
So again, this is, you can't really do this today, right? Unless you're independent. But so I told them what I was doing, and I had him go to the Smith Barney office and open an account and deposit the check, because I didn't want him to deposit the check at Pronounced Securities and have to do a transfer, right?
Yeah, that sounds like it get a little.
Well,
sticky.
One, I trusted the manager. A great guy. His name was Bill Leahy. He's still around. I think he's down in South Carolina or something now, right? But I trusted him, and my client was really loyal to me. All my clients I moved 100% of my clients. Yeah. My clients were very loyal to me. But those are the types of situations that you have to deal with. So we're sort of going down that road. But look, the other thing we talk about all the time, and we run these pro formas, is the cost to stay, right? Especially when we're talking to retail advisors. What I mean by retail is W-2 advisors. So an advisor that's not Morgan Stanley or whatever firm, Wells Fargo, doesn't matter. And when we look at the cost, and they've already made the commitment that they know that they want to go independent, right? So they've already sort of crossed that bridge. What I do is I start getting into the economics of the cost of staying. And we've seen situations where advisors are losing, when I say losing, the opportunity cost, meaning what they would be making at the new firm. Like throw a dart at an independent firm, this is what you'll be making at the new firm, right? And sometimes we've seen $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $80,000 a month more in increased income at the new firm. So, I had a situation where they were going to stay for almost a year because one advisor had a big note that they were going to have to pay back, right? And when I showed them the math, basically it would have cost them more money to stay,
right,
than just to leave now,
right,
and pay off the note over the same period of time, because you're going to make more money by moving today to pay off the note. And that's why we talk about our pro formas all the time, because they are very good. They're very accurate. We can toot my own horn. They're very accurate. But that's the kind of stuff that you have to analyze. What are the costs? Risk reward. Right. So anyway, look, the other thing that you need to think about when you are, and I just did this morning, as a matter of fact. I have a client, this similar client that wants to leave right away, is leaving a wirehouse firm. And they're an ensemble team, so they're a team, but they're an ensemble team, which means basically there's 3 guys that work together, but they're not like actually sharing revenue, right? But what I always recommend, especially when you're leaving a non-protocol firm, is you hire your own attorney. So this morning I referred them to a couple of attorneys, securities attorneys. Do not use your buddy who does real estate and traffic court and all that other stuff, right?
Totally different ballgame.
Or exactly, it's a different world.
Yeah.
You need to understand how it works in the language. And so I always recommend that. Some firms that you go to may provide sort of outside counsel, but I still always recommend you get your own outside counsel that you actually pay for, because I want to say, I haven't really had anything really go awry in a long time with a client. But if the firm is paying for that outside counsel, then ultimately they're going to really represent the firm if something goes sideways. And so it's worth the money. Most likely you're getting paid.
Both. You're suggesting do both.
Well, yeah, use the firm's counsel, right? But also have your own outside counsel, because if something does go sideways, your attorney is there to represent you in your best interests. So in this case, I referred them this morning to 2 different law firms, both New York City law firms, both really great firms, because I want them to go over their employment agreements, assure them that they don't have any garden leaves or anything like that. Because we had that situation once where the advisor didn't realize he had a garden leave, and whoops, surprise, you got to go back. And then also just go through protocol and non-protocol, because they're leaving a non-protocol firm, and even though we can give them basically, I give them the same advice, because I've been on these calls all the time and I've been doing this for a long time. But you still need an attorney to tell you what to do and not to. We're not attorneys, right, so we're just giving you guidance versus legal counsel, right? So you always want to engage in an attorney if you follow the rules, which we always say, just follow the rules, right? Don't play games. Don't try to say, well, they'll never find out I did this. You don't want to go down that road, because if they do find out, you're going to be in trouble, right? And then you're going to be put on the beach and it's going to be ugly. So I always talk about getting counsel early on. Doesn't mean you're going to be running up a legal bill all the time, right? Maybe it costs you $10,000 total, right? Just to have an analysis and have conversations, but you're getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to do this. It's worth the money. This is a large investment for you. It's a large asset to your business. Take care of it. And what I would tell you is you get what you pay for when it comes to attorneys. So just remember that. And then the other thing, the last part of it is really building up. So you have the 90-day plan, right? What we always recommend, and most firms we work with will have a sort of onboarding transition plan. Understand what that plan is going to be, and understand what you're going to need to provide to the firm along the way. And what I would tell everybody is, when a firm says, hey, by next Friday, we need this information, get them that information by next Friday. Actually do it. Right? Don't be like, well, I'm not going to do it that way. They don't. This is what they do for a living. Like, you may have not done this for ever, or you may haven't done this for years, and the last time you did it, the process was different.
Well, and they've seen what works, what doesn't work. They've been through every single scenario imaginable. This is all they do.
Right.
More so from years ago, transition teams, this is what they spend. They obsess about this stuff.
Right.
Because client retention, everybody wins.
Right. So just follow the rules, follow the game plan. If they tell you that you need to have these things done by a certain date, get them those things, and be over-prepared, because the more you plan ahead of time, the more successful your transition is going to be, right? So let's talk about, I'm going to move on to the next phase, right? So client communication, sort of do's and don'ts, right? This was the question that I was being asked the other day, and so what can we say to our clients? What we can't say to our clients, and generally speaking, and again, if you're coming from a wirehouse firm where theoretically you have let's just assume that we all agree that there's a non-solicit that you have, even though it's harder and harder for the firms to uphold those things in court, right? But the reality is, you're allowed to make an announcement to your clients. So one announcement, not a solicitation, but an announcement. Hey, Mr. Jones, this is Frank calling. Just how you doing today? Great, blah, blah, blah. Hey, John, I'm just giving you a call because I wanted to announce to you, use the word announce. I wanted to announce to you that I'm no longer and I'm not picking on any firms here.
XYZ firm.
I'm leaving. I just want to announce that I've left Morgan Stanley, and I've set up my own private practice with XYZ firm, and we use, I'm just again making some, and we use Schwab or Fidelity to custody, so that's where my clients' assets are going to be. And I just wanted to let you know and announce that to you in case you call the office and they tell you that I'm not there anymore. And then you pause and you stop and you don't say anything. And then the client will inevitably say, well, what does that mean for me? Can I come with you? Now the client just solicited you. So now you can have the conversation, right? Because you've announced it. The courts have basically ruled that every client deserves the right to know if their financial advisor is no longer at the firm that they were at anymore, right? What you don't want to do is leave that on a voicemail. Because if you leave that on a voicemail, that's considered an announcement.
Right.
And
well, it can be misinterpreted.
Well, yes, it can be misinterpreted, but more importantly, if you leave a client an announcement on, if you call up and they don't answer, and you leave that same message on a voicemail, that's considered your one announcement. So you cannot call that client back unless they call you. So same situation, and I get a beep, I'm just hanging up.
Right. You want to have an actual
You need an actual conversation. An announcement also includes a blast email. If you send a blast email to all your clients, that's considered
That's
your
your one
announcement.
shot.
So don't do that.
Yeah. But I think, and right before this podcast, we were having sort of an offline conversation, and not that this doesn't apply to individuals and family clients, but for business owner clients that are and ought to be always evaluating and reevaluating their processes, their business, what's right for their business, vendors they use, practices that they put in place, processes. That is a commonplace for any business, not just in financial services, that you're constantly reevaluating the growth of your business and all the different parameters that go into a business. So that's not an uncommon conversation for you to have with clients, especially business owner clients, on a regular basis.
Yeah, when you
that's just part of the normal
so that's
conversation.
sort of the post conversation, right? You're having a discussion with a client, and they're talking to you. Now, if you're independent, right, the conversation is a little bit different because you own the information. They're your clients. You can tell them what you're doing, right? But yeah, you want to the clients we were talking to the other day, through your due diligence process, what you're doing is formulating the story that you're going to talk to your clients about. Why you made the move, why you decided to choose this firm, right? And you're going to start it with, just like you, Bob, as a business owner, you evaluate your vendors all the time. Use the word vendor, right? You evaluate your vendors all the time. In our world, Morgan Stanley or whatever, Wells Fargo, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever firm you're at, or if you're at LPL or you're at some other firm, this is not a bash of firms call, right? But they don't understand the differences. They don't understand the back office component. So if you say, listen, I look at Morgan Stanley as a vendor to me to run my practice. And on an annual basis, just like I do with your accounts, we review and make sure that we're in the right position for the future of your retirement, for the future of your business. And I'm doing the same thing. I do this every couple of years, and I've made the decision and realized that the current firm that I'm at is really not sufficient enough for me, or to allow me to service you the way I need to service you. And so I made the decision to move firms. If you're going from a W-2 to retail, to independence, I always like to use the term private practice. I made the decision to go into private practice. Because as a private practitioner and a business owner, I can now fully customize the way I want to service your account.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with, I've had advisors say, I just feel like I'm outgrowing the firm that I'm currently at. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't have anything negative to say, but where I want to take my business doesn't align with the vision of the firm that I'm currently at. I mean, that's just a general conversation, financial services or not.
Just be honest. Somebody had asked me a question about, am I allowed to talk to my clients before that, right? And so if you're at a retail W-2 shop, the answer is sort of. There's nothing illegal or wrong or in violation of some policy for you to say to a client that you've been really unhappy at the firm that you're at because it's really it's becoming very onerous for you to service your clients the way you want to in the current environment that you're in, and you may be exploring options, just like we review our your account on an annual basis. I've been looking at options to see if there's a better solution for me to really be able to deliver you the Ritz-Carlton treatment I'm really looking for, right? What you can't tell them, and when you say that, what I always say is you pause, and then you simply say, how do you feel about that? Right? So these are for your best clients, right? You say, how do you feel about that? And they're going to, most of the time, they're going to go, well, listen, Frank, I'm going to go with you wherever you go. My relationship is with you. I don't really care about the firm that you're at, right? And you say, great, I appreciate that. I'm honored. Listen, I'm not saying I'm going anywhere. And even if I was going someplace, I'm not allowed to even tell you, right? So I just want you to understand that, like, if you call the office one day and they tell you I'm gone, don't get upset with me that I kept a secret from you. I'm not allowed to tell you, even if I knew today, which I don't, that I was leaving. I can't tell you that I'm actually leaving, and I certainly can't tell you where I'm going, because in our industry we're not allowed to do that. Just be honest with them. But you are allowed. There's nothing wrong with you having that conversation. right? You're not going to get fired. You're not going to, if anything, a good branch manager, if they find out you're having those conversations, will probably show you more love. At least that's what I used to do.
Yeah, well, as the advisor, you're always reevaluating which firm that you're at, so that the firm can service the advisor better, so that the advisor can service the client better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always the kind of the connect the dots conversation. The firms need to service you, the advisor, best, so that you can service your clients best.
Right. Yeah.
It's not just about a me advisor thing.
Yeah. Now listen, what I just went through, I would not have that conversation wholesale with all of your clients, right?
No.
That conversation that I just walked you through is with a handful of your very best, most trusted clients. And again, you're not asking them to move, and you're not telling them that you're moving, but you are. I use the extreme. Like, you can literally tell a client you hate the firm that you're at. Like, you can tell them that. I hate the firm that I'm at.
They don't care about me anymore.
They don't care about me anymore. You can throw a firm under the bus to a degree, right? To a client, there's nothing wrong with that. You just can't tell them that you're leaving next Friday and you're going to Raymond James, right? You're not allowed to do that, because then you're sort of, in a way, you're acting as dually employed, and that's illegal, right? But you can have these conversations. The point is, you need to be, as you're going through due diligence, if we circle back, right, into that 90-day period of time, right? You need to be thinking about what you're going to be saying to your clients, and what is the messaging that you're going to start to communicate. And over time, when you start to understand the resources that are available to you at the new firm, you're going to then use that as an opportunity to work that into the conversation, right? As just by way of example, another example. I did a call with a client yesterday, large team, and they have a lot of business owners as clients. And one of the firms that they're talking to is Raymond James, because they have a really great investment banking channel, right, for those clients. And what I told him was, listen, you need to work that into the conversation when you're telling the client why you decided to choose Raymond James, if that's where you're going to go. You say to them, John, as a business owner, and I know one day you're going to want to sell your practice, sell your business, because that's where your largest asset is, even though it's illiquid. And by going to Raymond James, they have a really robust investment banking platform that would allow me, as your financial advisor, to help you prepare and sell your business, versus where I am today. I'm really, number one, they don't really want me to, and number two, your business might be too small for them because they want $1 billion or more, right? So because I have a lot of clients like you, John, as business owners, I needed to find a place that I could really service you the way you need to be serviced, not just now, but in the future. And so what you've done there is you haven't solicited him to, I'm saying that he's already moved over, right? He's already said he's moving. But you haven't said, hey, let me help you sell your business. You've just planted the seeds that you have these other opportunities.
Yeah, ways that they can service their
right.
clients' needs better.
I did this when I moved
simple.
When I moved from Prudential Securities to Smith Barney. We had more banking opportunities. We had the ability to do mortgages and things like that. And I used the conversation about moving as the opportunity to generate more business. That's why when we see our advisors, most of the time, within 6 months to a year, they actually have more assets, aside from the market going south, they actually have more assets on the books than they did when they left, because they use that conversation to generate other business, right? Hey, John, we're leaving. I'm just making an example. Let's say you're a UBS advisor, right? And you're going to, I'll say Raymond James, but that client has a Merrill Lynch account. So you can say, listen, John, while we're at it, while we're moving all the accounts, I know that you haven't really been happy with the Merrill Lynch account. Why don't we just move that over at the same time? And most of the times they're like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I mean, what do I need to do?
Well, you're having a different conversation.
Right.
You're able to approach your client with a different conversation than just how's your account doing, how's your portfolio doing. It's a much more forward-thinking, visionary, servicing conversation.
Yeah. Listen, when I sometimes, for the certain clients, because when you're departing a W-2 firm, sometimes inheriting advisor will say all sorts of stuff like, oh yeah, well, he got paid a ton of money to move, right? Tell your client that. I did. When I moved, I told my clients, like, yeah, this has been a great opportunity, and because I run a great business, they firms pay us to move just like an elite athlete. All of my clients are like, congratulations, good for you. I'm super happy for you. You deserve it, right? So don't be bashful about that stuff. If you get a client that calls you and says, well, the guy that just took over my account said you probably got paid a lot of money to move, and that's why you moved. Say, actually, I did, because it's a lot of work, and I have to make sure I move all my clients and then continue to do business. But I built a very valuable business, and in our industry, this is how it works. They want me to move my practice to the new firm. No different than when an elite quarterback moves from one team to another team. Especially to the business owner clients, they love that because that's their world.
Yeah.
Right. So don't be bashful about that.
And more times than not, and we've seen it multiple times over the years, moving different teams, is they're having these conversations with their clients, and they're actually getting referrals from their clients.
Totally.
And their business is growing. For the one thing that you were most afraid of doing, losing clients, we've actually seen advisors gain clients because you're having a different discussion with them and saying, actually, you know what? My buddy's about to sell his business too.
That's
it just triggers. It triggers another conversation.
You use this conversation as a
really
springboard for other things. I was just going to say something about that. The other thing that I did when I moved is I was early on in the business, so I moved. I was 3 years in the business, and I instituted a $250,000 account minimum. So for someone that was brand new in the business, that was a pretty big deal, right?
Sure.
I told my clients that when I was moving, and the clients that were under 250, I said to them, I'm bringing them over, even though they're below the $250,000 minimum. So what I would ask of you is, when you think about referrals, people that you could refer to me, just keep in mind that I have a $250,000 minimum. I got more referrals in the first 90 days of me moving my firm than I did in 3 years.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Right? And they were all bigger because they were all everybody refers up. No one ever refers, generally speaking, they don't refer down, meaning they don't refer somebody lower than them. But I was also able to get more business from clients that were just below that because they were worried that I would basically get rid of them. Right? So it's, a lot of advisors feel like they get nervous. This is sort of the emotional side of this whole thing, right? And they're afraid that their clients aren't going to move with them. The reality is, and the numbers show, that you will, aside from maybe coming from a captive bank environment or something like that, right? Generally speaking, you will be very successful in moving all your clients. If you follow the rules, you don't mess around with data, you follow legal advice, you work with the transition firm at the firm that you're working with, the team. Generally speaking, you'll probably have your entire book moved in anywhere between 30 and maybe at the most 90 days if you're leaving a non-protocol firm, right? Because a non-protocol takes a little bit more time to put all your stuff together. But I always say to people, generally speaking, you'll be back up and running in after 90 days. It takes about 90 days to get everything moved and sort of get accounts over and get to some of the stragglers and get all the billing going, all that other stuff. So after about 90 days, you're up and running.
Yeah, and I think, just to touch on the emotional side again, because that's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
Most clients, especially retirees, aging clients, they don't like change. They're at a time in their life where maybe they're retiring and looking to change locations where they live. Changing their financial advisor relationship that they've had for 20, 30, 40 years in some cases, that's not a high priority. So the retention rate, especially of those, again, aging, retiring clients, is really low.
Yeah. They view getting a new advisor as more of a critical change.
Yeah, it's like building a brand new house.
They don't want to do it. That's why when we were moving advisors during sort of the tail end, the second half of 2020, not only were clients signing paperwork immediately, advisors were moving like 98%, if not more, of those clients, and they were moving them quickly because, to your point, a client that has a relationship with their financial advisor for 15, 20 years, 25 years, they have no interest in starting a new relationship with someone they don't know, right? Who doesn't know their family,
Right.
who doesn't know the ins and outs of all the things that you've gone through and the iterations of your career, your business career, and where the money came from. And maybe we're with you during 2008, 2009, or 2000, 2001, and you were with them when, and then you fought, brought the account back, right? They remember all that stuff. So don't be afraid of that stuff not happening. On the flip side, also don't take it for granted either, right? Like your client that basically hadn't talked to half of his clients for like a couple of years, right? You should be, during this period of time, when I said show them the love at the beginning, during this, I'll just call it the entire due diligence phase, not just that 90 days before you move, but once you've made the decision that you're going to move, right? And that process can take as little as 30, 40,
days.
60 days,
That's
right?
not ideal, really.
That's not ideal. That's a rush. There's something
Fire drill.
going on there. But 9 months to a year, you should be ramping up your service to your clients. You should be ramping up the communication, ramping up the phone calls, ramping up the meetings.
Reviews, annual meetings.
Reviews,
right.
annual meetings.
As a best practice.
Client events, dinners, things like that. Look, you should be doing that anyway. But in preparation for you to make your move, you should really be ramping that stuff up, right? Because that will pay dividends tenfold when you make the move. So anyway, I think we beat that horse dead. When then so I would say finally one of the other concerns that advisors have is data, right? How do we move my data, account repapering, staffing, all of that stuff. And again, that's for probably another topic, another time. But these are the types of things that you want to work through when you're making your move. And it's a little bit different when you're going from W-2 to W-2 versus W-2 to 1099. But you want to make sure when it comes to technology, as an example, right? Not only are you aware of the technology that you're going to use, but I also recommend bringing your assistant in if they're be careful about that, right? But if they are an integral part of your business and they are aware of what's going on, you should get them some training on the new system before they get there. One of the things that we negotiate a lot of times is the transition team and how many people are going to actually be in the office when you're making the move and for how long. And some of that is really to provide support to your assistant. So because it's going to be new technology for him or her and they have to figure all that stuff out, right? And you want the experience for your clients to be really good. And what you don't want to have happen is your assistant doesn't understand what's going on, and then now all of a sudden that first engagement your client has with the new firm is choppy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I've worked with teams where the assistant played, a role where they were very involved and a situation where the assistant was on the outskirts. And I can tell you that for advisors that have strong relationships with their assistants, which you should, client service associates, having them being part of the decision-making process, the training, the technology demos, the learning of how to operate the business at the new firm is really advantageous for just the success of the move in and of itself.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe there's certain outlier situations where you would keep that from an assistant, but I've seen large teams have a lot of success moving their practices, and while they're doing tech demos, their assistants are on the tech demo. While they're learning about
one tomorrow.
Platform, right, exactly. The assistants have a say. They are the backbone of your practice. So I would say that any of the moves that I've been fortunate to be a part of, having that CSA or support staff involved in the training and the decision making is really a good.
Yeah, look, you can do more of that when
to
you're independent, right? When you're already independent, you can do that. They can be fully aware. Most likely, they are fully aware because they work for you. Basically, they work for you at that point.
Right, well,
right?
there's a trust factor.
Yeah, but
W2 teams.
well, in the W-2 world, it's different, right? So if they work for a UBS or Morgan Merrill, whatever it is, right, they're technically, for the most part, employed by the firm.
Right.
Now, unless you're paying for them out of your own pocket.
So know your assistant.
So know your assistant, right? And be really, really careful about that. But it is important. We're doing a meeting tomorrow. I'm doing a meeting tomorrow, actually Thursday and Friday, because we're doing three virtual VIPs back to back to back. And during each of the technology demos for each of the three companies, they're having their assistant join the meeting so that she can see the tools that they're going to be using, right? Because financial advisor, and this is another thing. So as an advisor, your technology needs and what you want to see out of a technology platform are different than what your assistant wants to see, right? I can't remember the last time I actually had a financial advisor do a technology demo and asked, show me how to open a new account. Right? Because a financial advisor doesn't do that, right? But that's one of the first things a sales assistant, client service associate asks to see.
Yeah.
How do I open the account? How do I send a wire? How do I submit ACAT forms? Those are the things they do on a daily basis, right? That they wanna see how it works.
Yeah. Well, the business can't operate without that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's a small thing.
Listen, I think that there's a lot of things that you can go through. Making a move is not easy. But it's also not as hard as you think. All of the firms that we work with do this, I'm going to say on a maybe daily basis, a weekly basis. They have advisors that are moving all the time. They have people, some of the best firms have entire transition teams. This is all they do, right? Versus sort of like back in the day when I moved and when I was a manager, my transition team was like my ops manager and my assistant and my administrative officer, and we all sort of got together, and the receptionist, and we all sort of got together and triaged the whole thing, right? Nowadays, there's firms that do it, and a lot of times there are firms where they have one or two people at their firm that you're joining, but then they'll hire an outsourced transition group to provide more hands-on staff to help you make your move.
But I've also seen firms that have, compared to years ago, firms that have a workflow, let's call it, literally a roadmap with 50 line items, 50 check boxes to check. Step 1, step 1A, step 1B, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Week by
all
week by
along
week by
the way.
week.
Right, week by week, day by day.
Yeah.
So it's very, very systematized.
Yeah. So in that note, I think that when you're making this move, especially if you have a larger team, a piece of good advice would be to have one person that's on your team as the point person.
For sure.
For the transition. Because otherwise it sort of gets like who's doing what and who's on first and who's on second and I thought you were doing it. No, you said you were doing it last week. Well, I didn't do it. And all of a sudden you blow 2 or 3 weeks in preparation, and it could push your timeline back, right? So have one person on your team assigned to work with the firm's transition people. Because a lot of the good firms, they have weekly phone calls to catch up. So there's things to do each week, but then they have a standing, every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, everybody's getting together on a call to talk about what was accomplished last week. What are the next things that we need to get accomplished this week? Okay, we need to get the phone set up. We need to get real estate done. We need to settle. We need to make decisions on the furniture. You need to start doing branding. What is the branding component, right? What are you going to do with your website? What is your brand going to look like? Have you come up with a logo yet?
Sort of like the transition project manager.
Yeah, it's a project manager, right? It's really what it is. So, anyway. Looking, I think that there's a lot to unpack here, right? We can do hours of these. We can each category we could have done an hour podcast on, right? The point is that we are experts at doing this. Last year we moved almost 200 unique. We had almost 200 unique advisor moves.
Yeah, this is
right?
all we do.
This is all we do. So we see everything from wires to indies to wire. We've moved a couple of indies to wires, right? To RIAs. Everything in between. So you don't have to go this alone. If you feel like you're not getting the attention that you need, part of our job also, for our clients at least, is to be an advocate for them during this process, because we want the process to be successful. And so does the firm, right? The firms are giving you a lot of money They're giving the advisors a lot of money.
Yeah, they're taking the most risk.
Yeah, they want the transition to go well. They want you to move your clients as quickly as possible and get them billing and generating revenue as quickly as possible, because that's in their best interest and it's in your best interest. But sometimes the reality is, not everybody's perfect and not every team has A players. And so sometimes you come across a situation where the firm is an A firm, but they might have a B player or maybe even a C player that's doing some of the work. You got to communicate that stuff to the firm and to us, especially if you're one of our clients. We expect our clients to communicate to us, because we will go and kick down doors to make sure that our clients are getting serviced the right way. And because of the amount of business that we do with a lot of these different firms, we have a sort of a big microphone. And so, we're here to help. We're here to guide you. Again, I know I gave you some advice in terms of how to communicate with clients. What to say, what not to say. You should talk to an attorney. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV.
You don't?
I don't play one on TV. I know a lot about the securities industry and law, but I'm not an attorney. So when it comes to you leaving a non-protocol firm, you definitely want to have conversations with your attorney on what you can say, what you cannot say, and those sort of softer conversations, so you don't get yourself into trouble, right? And what you can take, what you can't take, all of those things are super, super important. But we've moved plenty of advisors at non-protocol firms, and they move just as fast, almost as fast,
right.
And they move all their clients. It takes a little bit more time, but I'm not talking about like 6 months versus 90 days. It's like 60 days versus 45 days. Like, it's not as long as onerous a process. Matter of fact, in the lead up to making a move, there's actually less work to do when you're leaving a non-protocol firm, because you can't even take the protocol list. So you can't even put together the spreadsheet.
Right, and that can be nerve-wracking too. You feel like you should be doing things,
right.
but you're
there's
not.
Actually less work to do when you're leaving a non-protocol firm. Not less work to do ahead of the move. Once you move, then you have to go into a website. You have to pull up all the client's information, which is all public information, right? Names and phone numbers and addresses, all that stuff's public, right? And so, so there's a little more work when you get there, but either way, this happens all the time. It's what time is it today? It's almost 11 o'clock. Someone on Wednesday, someone's probably resigning today.
Yep.
Right now.
I can think of a few.
And moving firms, right? Actually, we had some this morning, right? And so this is not something that the industry is new at. It may be new to you. It may be your first time ever doing it. It's okay. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure that you're taken care of. We make sure that the firms that we work with take care of our clients to make that move successful. And our goal, obviously, is to help you make this move so you never have to do it again, ideally, right? I think I can count on one hand and not even use all 5 fingers how many times we've actually moved somebody where they then decided to leave that firm because they didn't like the firm.
Yeah. Within a few years, right? That's why going through the due diligence process the right way, the way we do it, is so important.
Yeah. So, anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope this was enjoyable. I hope this was informative, most importantly, and educational, which is the point of these conversations.
But there's nothing better than a good old-fashioned phone conversation or Zoom with us. To hear you out, hear what's important to you.
So if they want to have a good old-fashioned phone conversation with you, what should they do?
Oh, you should call Stacey at 856-816-6322 or Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com. Don't forget the E. Yeah. Or Frank.
856-316-4651. And Mary will answer the phone, since I don't answer my own phone anymore.
We love Mary.
I know. Mary's great. And you can also shoot me an email at frank@eliteconsultingpartners.com. And I'd be happy to speak with you and or have you talk to Stacey or somebody on our team that can really help you navigate this, the plethora of choices and the stresses and the emotional roller coaster that we understand that you'll go through. Again, I went through it. I understand it. But if you look at it and position it as an exciting part of your career, the ones that do it that way have exponential growth after they leave. So. Anyway, with that said, we'll see you next time.
See you soon.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics in the financial services industry, or you just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcasts.